Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the class. In the previous class, we have started our discussion regarding the 73rd and 74th Amendment, which was done to the Constitution in the year 1992. And we have seen that before these amendments in our Constitution, uh, only two levels of government was mentioned, that is at the center and the state level, and local government was not given a proper place in the constitution because of some reasons, and in the previous class we have discussed these reasons. So because of our constitution has not given any place to this local government in it, then what happened that in our country after independence, these local bodies were existing. But what we find that these the local bodies were not um, existing in a proper manner. There was lack of regular elections. There was a they were not given adequate power and functions, and then lack of funds. So all these problems was there in the local bodies which was existing, but because of no mention in the constitution, they were not given proper place, and regularity and uniformity was not there in the whole country. So our there was it was understood that we need to change this situation, and decentralization of power is very much important in order to make the democracy real and meaningful. So in our country, we have gone for 73rd and 74th amendment, through which constitutional status was given to the local government, and now we have three levels of government. The first is at the center level, then state level, and then at the local level. And if there is mention of this division of power in the constitution, then what we find that the source of power is the constitution. So there cannot be any change in this division of power, and any change can be done only through the amendment to the constitution. So this is the important now the important place has been given to this local bodies in our constitution, and accordingly we see that now there is uniformity in the composition and function and power of the local bodies in all over the country. So today we will discuss the 73rd and 74th Amendment. What changes were brought about because of these 73rd and 74th Amendment. So first of all, we will see the 73rd Amendment, which is regarding the Panchayati Raj institutions, or it is concerned with it is only about the rural local bodies. And in this rural local bodies, uh, by this 73rd Amendment, the most important uh, change which was brought was the three-tier structure was accepted. Our Panchayati Raj institution is three-tier. So it's a three-tier Panchayati Raj structure, and the other thing is uniformity. This three-tier Panchayati Raj structure will be done in whole country. There should be uniformity in the composition of Panchayati Raj institution. And in this three-tier structure, what we find the at the base or at the first level, there is Gram Panchayat. Gram Panchayat is um, for one village, but if the village is small, then it can be for a group of village also. So at the first level, Gram Panchayat, and this Gram Panchayat covers a village or a group of village. Then after the Gram Panchayat, at the second level is mandal. First level gram, second level is mandal. Mandal is also called block or taluka. All are synonyms: block, taluka, mandal. So the next level is mandal, block or taluka, and at these level, the body, local body which is formed are called mandal or taluka panchayat, or it is also called panchayat samiti. So mandal or taluka panchayat or panchayat samiti is at the second level or intermediary level. Here one important thing is there that if the state is small, if the area of the state is not very big, then in that case, uh, this second level of local body will not be there. Okay, and at the apex means at the third level. We have three tier structures. So third level is the apex level. At the apex is the Jila Panchayat, and this Jila Panchayat covers the entire rural area of the district. Okay, the Jila Panchayat, you must remember the names, you must remember the levels and the area which it covered. Now we see that the amendment also made a provision for the mandatory creation of Gram Sabha. It is mandatory for all the Panchayati Raj institutions that there must be a Gram Sabha. And what do you mean by Gram Sabha? Gram Sabha is the assembly of people which comprise all adult member of a panchayat area. All adult member of a village or a group of village, whatever is the area of a panchayat, whatever area is being covered by the panchayat, in that area, all the adult members are the members of the Gram Sabha. And this is very much important for this Panchayati Raj institution, and it has also been said that this Gram Sabha must meet at least 2 times in a year, and it has a very important role to play because this is the main body in which we see the participation of the people is there, because all adult members are the member of Gram Sabha, and it must meet at least twice in a year. So it is the very much important element of our Panchayati Raj institutions. Okay, now we will see this is the structure. Now we will see the election, how election is done. Okay, so we see that all the three levels of Panchayati Raj institutions are elected directly by the people. Their direct election will be there. And what is the tenure of the Panchayat body? The term or tenure, both are same thing. The term of a Panchayat body is 5 years. Just like our MPs and MLAs are elected for the period of 5 years, just like that, the these panchayat body is also elected for 5 years term. And there is also a very important provision that if the state government dissolves the panchayat before the end of its 5 year term, due to some reason, if the state government dissolves the panchayat before this 5 year term, before completing this 5 year term, then what will happen? That it will be mandatory for the state to conduct fresh election within 6 months of such dissolution. What happened earlier, before this 73rd amendment, what happened that elections were not regular. Uh, Once election was held and then the local bodies were dissolved due to some reason by the state government, and then there is no election. So in order to avoid that type of situation, it is written in the constitution that if the state government dissolves the panchayat, gram panchayat or panchayat bodies, before the end of the 5 years, then it must conduct the election within 6 months of such dissolution. Okay, so this is very much important. And in before 73rd amendment, another situation, problem was there, that many times there used to be indirect election to the district bodies, and there was no provision for immediate election after dissolution. So, keeping in view all these problems which were associated with the elections of these local bodies, this provision has been made in the constitution. Okay, so this is about election. And who conducts the election of these panchayat institutions? The election is conducted by a state election commission, about which we will study in our further discussion. So now we will discuss reservation. You have seen when we were discussing Lok Sabha, uh, we have seen that in our Lok Sabha and state assemblies, in our Lok Sabha, seats are reserved for the members belonging to the scheduled caste and scheduled tribes, and this reservation was given in order to give them proper representation. So, in the similar way, in these local bodies also there is provision for reservation, but here we find there is a new element is there, and that is the one third of the positions in all panchayat institutions are reserved for women. So this is very important, because we have discussed this, that in Lok Sabha there is demand from, of course, from the women organizations, that they must be given reservation of seats in the Lok Sabha, because their representation is very low, so they need reservation. But this women's reservation, well, uh, it was there, but it could not be passed by both the houses, and it could not be materialized. But here we see that at the local level, this reservation is provided through the constitution only. So it is a very positive thing, and very much responsible for, we can say it is a way to empower the women. So it's a very positive aspect of our Panchayati Raj institutions. Then we see, other than women, the seats are also reserved for scheduled caste and scheduled tribes at all the three levels. Okay, at the Gram Panchayat, at the Panchayat Samiti, and then at the Jila Parishad. And this for women, the reservation is one third, and for scheduled caste and scheduled tribe, the reservation is according to their population. Whatever is their population, then their proportion will be taken, and accordingly they will be given reservation. So there is another provision also for OBCs. It is not, the seats are not reserved for OBCs. It has been left for the decision of the state government, that if the state find it necessary that some seats must be reserved for other backward castes classes, then it must be reserved. It will be reserved. So OBC for other backward classes, the reservation is not given in the constitution, but it is up to the state. They want to give the reservation to these other backward class, then they can give them. So always remember, this is other backward class, not caste, because it is based on the economic criteria, as said, as delivered by as judgment delivered by the Supreme Court. So one more thing which is to be noted, that these reservations apply not merely to ordinary members in panchayats, but also to the position of chairpersons or adhyakshas at all the three levels. So what we see that if one third of the seats are reserved in gram panchayats for women, then it means that one third of all the panches, sarpanch, the head of the gram panchayat is sarpanch. So, what is the meaning of one third seat reservation for women? Seats, ordinary members, the total number of ordinary member, whatever is the total number of ordinary member, one third of those member must be women, and the number of sarpanch, total number of sarpanch will be divided by 3, and that whatever comes by dividing the 3, that number must be reserved for women. So this reservation is not only for the ordinary members but also for the position of chairpersons. Okay, and then we see that this reservation of women is not merely in the general category but also within the seats reserved for scheduled caste, scheduled tribe and backward caste. So this is also important. This is one important fact about the women reservation, that the reservation is not only for ordinary member but also for the position of chairperson. And next we see that this reservation of one third of the seats for women is not merely in the general category but also within the seats reserved for scheduled caste, seats which are reserved for scheduled caste or scheduled tribes or backward caste. In those seats also one third is reserved for women. So whatever seats is reserved for scheduled caste, one third of that seat should be filled by the women scheduled women, Dalit women we can say it. Or if the whatever number of seats are reserved for scheduled tribes, then one third of the member must be the tribal women. Okay, and this means a seat may be reserved simultaneously for a woman candidate and one belonging to the scheduled caste or scheduled tribe. So at the same time a seat is reserved for a woman candidate and also for the scheduled caste or scheduled tribe, the same thing which I told you. So the seat is reserved for both. So who will be elected? If the seat is reserved for a woman and that seat is also reserved for scheduled caste, then Dalit women will be elected. If the seat is reserved for women and the same seat is reserved for scheduled tribe, then the Adivasi women will become the will represent that seat. Okay, so this is the condition. And now we will see transfer of subjects. So we have seen that our constitution has provision for division of power between the center and the state, and in this division of power there are three lists. The first list is union list, then state list, then concurrent list. So now when we are discussing this transfer of subject, we are concerned only with the subject state list. So by this 73rd amendment, the 29 subjects which were earlier in the state list were identified and listed in the 11th schedule of the constitution. So these 29 subjects which were in the state list, they were identified and listed in 11th schedule. And now it is up to the states that they can transfer these subjects to the Panchayati Raj institution. So total 29 subjects are there in the 11th list, and these subjects are earlier belonged to state list, and now these subjects of 11th list can be transferred to Panchayati Raj institutions by the state government. And we will see that the nature of all the subjects which are listed in the 11th schedule are linked to development and welfare function at the local level. Mostly those functions, those subjects which are related to development and welfare activities at the local level is there in the 11th schedule. And this is not that all these 29 subjects has been given to the Panchayati Raj institutions. No, it is only these subjects are mentioned in the list, and it is uh, given the power is given to the state government that it should transfer any of these subjects to the local government, to the Panchayati Raj institution, and it will depend on the desire of the state. Each state will decide how many of these 29 subjects will be transferred to the local bodies. So any state can transfer all the 29 subjects, any state can transfer only 2 subjects or 3 subjects. So it totally depends on the state government. Now we can see this article 243G. The article says powers, authority and responsibilities of panchayats. The legislature of a state may, by law, endow the panchayats with such powers and authority with respect to the matters listed in the 11th schedule. So whatever 29 subjects are listed in the 11th schedule, and it is the legislature of a state which by making laws will give transfer these subjects to the panchayats. And now we will see some subjects which are listed in the 11th schedule. The first is agriculture, which is an important important subject in the local matters. Then minor irrigation, water management and watershed development. Then small scale industries, which also include food processing industries. Then rural housing, drinking water, roads, culverts, rural electrification, poverty alleviation program, education, including primary and secondary. So all these are included in the 11th schedule. Technical training and vocational education, adult and non-formal education, libraries, cultural activities, markets and fairs, health and sanitation, including hospitals, primary health centers and dispensaries, family welfare, women and child development, social welfare, welfare of the weaker section and in particular of the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes, public distribution system. So these are some of the important subjects which are listed in the 11th schedule. So the provision of 73rd amendment were not made applicable to the areas inhabited by the Adivasi population in many states of India. We see that one of the most important requirement, one of the most important need for this 73rd amendment was there was lack of uniformity in the composition and function and power of the local bodies. So in order to ensure uniformity, the 73rd amendment was made in the constitution. But in this regard, we will see that the provision of 73rd amendment were not applicable to the areas which are inhabited by Adivasi population, the tribal population in many states of India. Why it is not applicable in those areas which are inhabited by Adivasi population? Because the Adivasi community, they have their own traditional custom of managing common resources. They follow their own customs in order to manage forest, small water reservoirs, etc. So, and they don't want to change their traditional customs. So, this was done that the provisions of 73rd Amendment was not made applicable to these areas. And instead of this, what was done that in 1996, a separate act was passed extending the provision of panchayat system to these areas. So for this purpose, a separate act was passed which extended the provision of the panchayat system to these tribal areas. So what is the purpose of doing this? The purpose is to protect the rights of these tribal communities. They must have the right to manage their resources in their own way, because they have very distinct culture and they want to preserve their culture. So uh, they want to preserve their customs. So in order to protect um, their custom and cultures and their rights over the common resources, this was done by our constitution. And more powers are given to the Gram Sabha of these areas. The areas which are tribal areas. In these tribal areas, the Gram Sabhas are given more powers. And elected village panchayats have to get the consent of the Gram Sabha in many respects. So, Gram Sabha is an assembly of all the adult members of the village. And these adult members of the village use their right to vote and elect the members of the Gram Panchayat. So now in these areas which are tribal areas, what is done that more powers are given to Gram Sabha. And what is these more powers? How Gram Sabha is made more powerful? It is made more powerful by this provision that the village panchayats have to get the consent of Gram Sabha in many respects in order to in many decisions it cannot take on its own. It had to get the consent of the Gram Sabha. So in this way, the Gram Sabha is given more power in the tribal areas. The idea behind this act is that local tradition of self-government should be protected while introducing modern elected bodies. So the Panchayati Raj institution, which has been introduced by the 73rd Amendment, this is present day elected bodies, modern elected bodies. So whatever is the local tradition which is followed by the people of tribal people of a particular area, that should be protected, but some changes have also brought through these modern elected bodies. So this is only consistent with the spirit of diversity and decentralization. As our country is full of diversity, there are in so many states tribal population is high. In so many states there is substantial tribal population. So in order to maintain this diversity and in order to actualize the process of decentralization, so this is an effort of the government to balance diversity with decentralization. Both are important. To maintain diversity is also important, and decentralization of power is also important. But in order to decentralize the power, diversity should not be compromised. So the government has introduced this novel way. Okay, so this is about transfer of power, and now the remaining part will be discussed in the next class.